The first time I saw her, the air changed, like someone had turned down the volume on the world. Conversations blurred, laughter dulled, and I could hear only the soft clink of her glass when she lifted it. She was sitting at the far end of the room, near the window, where the late sunlight caught her in half gold. Her hair, pinned carelessly, had come loose in strands that brushed her neck every time she turned her head. I remember
Feel
that,
the moment
not the color of her dress
with me.
or the music playing, but the small, unintentional movement that made it impossible to look away. I told myself I wasn't staring. I told myself I was just curious. But then she looked up, and in that exact second, when her eyes met mine, I knew curiosity had already become something else. She didn't look startled. She didn't even smile. She just held my gaze with a calm, unhurried confidence that made me forget what I'd been about to say. It wasn't an invitation, it was recognition. Like she saw the thought I hadn't yet admitted to myself. I looked away first. Later, I found myself standing near her without remembering how I'd crossed the room. The noise of the cafe returned, soft chatter, espresso steam, the faint scrape of chairs, but she was still the only thing in focus. "Sorry," I said, after almost brushing her shoulder. She turned slightly, one brow raised. "For what?" Her voice was low, unbothered. I felt stupid for apologizing, but she seemed amused by it, a faint smile tugging at her mouth. "For almost," I gestured vaguely, words failing somewhere between my hands. She tilted her head. "Almost doesn't count." It was a simple line, almost careless, but it landed somewhere deep. She went back to her coffee, fingers circling the rim of the cup, like she was tracing the edge of a thought. I stayed. I told myself it was just proximity. The bar was crowded, nowhere else to stand. But the truth was simpler and harder to ignore. There was something magnetic about her stillness, the quiet way. She occupied space without asking permission. She glanced up again. "You're new here," she said. "Is it that obvious?" Everyone who's been coming long enough learns not to apologize for standing too close. I laughed softly. "I'll take that as advice." Her eyes lingered, not flirty, not cold, just measuring. "You'll learn." She turned back to her notebook, pen moving across the page in slow, deliberate lines. I tried not to read upside down, but I caught a few words. Stay, maybe, enough. They didn't mean anything, but they stayed with me. The light shifted. The cafe's old clock ticked too loudly. Someone's phone buzzed. The ordinary sounds returned, but between us was something that didn't fit the rhythm of the room. I could have left. Should have, maybe. But my hand brushed the counter near hers when I reached for a napkin, and her pen paused mid-word. She didn't pull away. And that small, shared stillness, the space between our fingers, felt louder than anything I'd ever said out loud. The barista called my name. I picked up my drink, but didn't move. She finally looked up again, eyes warm but unreadable. "You should go before it gets cold." "I don't mind," I said. Her smile was brief, a private one, as if she already knew what that meant. I was about to ask her name when a sharp sound cut through the quiet, her phone buzzing on the table. She looked at the screen, expression shifting just enough to draw a line between us again. She silenced the call, met my eyes once more, and said softly, "You shouldn't look at someone like that, you know." Then she stood, gathered her things, and walked out before I could answer. The door swung shut behind her, leaving the faint scent of her perfume, and the question she hadn't let me ask, hanging in the warm air. I saw her again 3 days later. Same cafe, same seat by the window. This time, I didn't pretend it was a coincidence. She noticed me before I reached the counter, the faintest lift of her eyes, that almost smile that said she remembered. I nodded, trying to look casual. My heart didn't believe me. The sunlight was weaker that afternoon, filtered through gray clouds. She wore a dark sweater, sleeves pushed up, wrist bare except for a thin gold bracelet that caught the light every time she moved her hand. When I finally walked past her table, she closed her notebook. "You came back," she said. I shrugged, too quickly. "I like coffee." She studied me, chin resting on her hand. "That's a terrible lie." Her tone wasn't cruel, more like she was testing how honest I was willing to be. I tried to find something clever to say, but the truth slipped out instead. "I wasn't sure you'd want me to." That made her pause. She looked out the window, then back at me. "You shouldn't need permission to exist in a place." "But I do," I said, softer than I meant to. For a moment, something in her face changed. Recognition, maybe. The kind of quiet that comes from knowing exactly what it means to feel out of place. She motioned to the seat across from her. Then sit, before someone else does. Her name was Elena. She said it without offering a handshake, like she already knew the distance between us was fragile. Over coffee, conversation drifted. Not small talk, the kind that circles loneliness without naming it. She told me she used to teach literature before moving here. I thought starting over would make things lighter, she said, tracing her finger over the rim of her cup. Turns out, you carry yourself wherever you go. I told her I was studying architecture, that I liked shapes that lasted longer than people. She smiled at that, but there was something sad in her eyes. Do you live nearby? I asked. She hesitated. A few blocks away. I'm renting from a friend's family. I didn't think much of it until she mentioned a name. Mara, my childhood neighbor. My chest tightened. You know Mara? I asked. Her eyes widened slightly. You're her son? I nodded, and for a second the world went still. Her mouth parted. Just a breath, a flicker of realization that changed everything between us. That makes this, she began, then stopped. Complicated, I offered. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's one word for it. The rain started while we sat there, soft against the window. Neither of us moved. I didn't know, I said quietly. About you and. It was years ago, she interrupted, but her voice carried something brittle. Before she married. Before I learned to keep certain lines clear. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Inside, her reflection blurred against the glass, two outlines sitting closer than they should. When she finally reached for her coat, her fingers brushed mine, just enough to stop time. Neither of us pulled away. I shouldn't, she whispered. I know. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full of what-ifs, of everything neither of us could name. As she stood, her bracelet caught against my sleeve. She froze, untangling it gently, eyes flicking up to mine. Next time, she said, voice low, uncertain, you should probably stay away. But she didn't sound convinced. And when she left, she glanced back. Once, long enough for me to forget how to breathe. For a week, I didn't see her. Every time I passed the cafe window, the empty chair by the glass felt like a reminder I didn't deserve to miss. Then, one late evening, just as the streetlights flickered on and the rain threatened again, she walked in. Same coat, same quiet grace, and that same flicker in her eyes when she saw me already there. You're persistent, Elena said, her voice steady, but her hand lingered on the strap of her bag as if deciding whether to stay. I thought maybe you'd come, I said. A pause. Then, softly, you shouldn't have. Still, she sat down. The cafe was half empty, the air heavy with roasted coffee and thunder. She ordered tea this time, something with lemon, and while she stirred it, I watched her fingers. How carefully they moved, like she was avoiding another kind of stirring altogether. You didn't answer my text, I said quietly. I wasn't sure I should. Because of Mara? Her eyes met mine. Because of everything. The silence after that felt like a third person sitting with us. The one we didn't invite but couldn't ignore. Outside, thunder rolled. She flinched, just slightly, and her spoon clinked against the cup. I reached across instinctively, steadying it before it fell. Our hands met, briefly, skin to skin, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Her breath caught. You shouldn't touch me like that. Then stop sitting close enough for me to forget. Her lips parted, as if to protest, but no words came. Instead, her eyes dropped to our hands still too near, and she didn't move them right away. The door opened suddenly, breaking the spell. Mara's voice, too familiar, too close. Mom. Elena froze. The title hung in the air like a secret exposed under a harsh light. Mara hadn't noticed me yet, but Elena's expression said everything. Fear, guilt, something dangerously human. I sat back slowly, pulling my hand away. She doesn't know? I whispered. Elena shook her head once, sharply. No, she can't. Before I could answer, Mara spotted me. Hey, I didn't know you came here too. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Small world. Elena's composure cracked only for a heartbeat. Her shoulders tense, her hand tightening around her cup. Mara chatted easily, oblivious, until a friend called her from the doorway. She waved, said goodbye, and was gone before either of us exhaled. Elena pressed her palms flat on the table. This has to stop. I know, I said. But do you want it to? Her eyes flicked to mine, A flash of something raw, something she couldn't hide. Thunder again. A light flickered. The air between us thickened until even breathing felt like confession. She stood, too quickly, knocking her chair slightly askew. I rose too. We were close enough that I could see the tremor in her throat when she swallowed. "Elena," I said. She looked up, and for half a second, we both leaned in, gravity pulling, sense unraveling, until the cafe door swung open again and a cold draft cut through the space between us. She stepped back, eyes dark, voice low. "Don't follow me." Then she left, her scent lingering, my pulse still trapped in the space she'd just vacated. And outside, rain finally started to fall. Unresolved. Just like us, the rain hadn't stopped in 2 days. It came down in long, silver threads that blurred everything: streets, windows, thoughts. I told myself I wouldn't see her again. That what happened, what almost happened, should have been enough to end it. But by the third evening, I was standing outside her building, soaked and unsure whether I was there by accident or need. The light in her window flickered. Then, the sound of a door unlocking. She looked at me like she'd already known I'd come. No surprise, no anger, just the kind of tired acceptance that felt heavier than either. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I know." Her hair was damp at the ends, the soft curl of it brushing her collarbone. She'd been painting. I could see faint streaks of color on her wrist, pale green like sea glass. The scent of turpentine and rain filled the narrow hall between us. "I tried," I said, "to stay away." "I did too." Her voice faltered, softer now. "But you're here." A pause, the kind that rearranges everything. Inside, her apartment was dim, a single lamp, the quiet hum of rain against the window. Canvases leaned against the walls. The room smelled of coffee and something faintly floral, the same scent I remembered from that first day. She poured me tea without asking, her hand steady but her breath uneven. "This isn't fair," she said. "I'm not asking for fair." She looked up sharply. "Then what are you asking for?" The question hung there, dangerous, trembling, the only thing left between us. "For honest," I said finally. "Just once." She let out a quiet laugh, almost bitter. "Honesty doesn't always save people." "Maybe not, but lies ruin them." Something in her face broke then, the composure, the practiced calm. She took a step closer, close enough for her shadow to fall across mine. "Do you even understand what this is?" she whispered. "No," I said, "but I know what it feels like." Her eyes flicked down, to my mouth, to the space between us that had shrunk to nothing. "You're too young to mistake desire for truth," she said, but her voice was trembling now. "And you're too careful to admit when you want something real." Her breath hitched, just once. Then she moved past me, pacing toward the window. The rain traced lines down the glass, the city lights warping behind it. When she turned back, her face was softer, stripped of all the armor she wore so well. "I promised myself I wouldn't cross this line again," she murmured. "Not after Mara's father. Not after the years it took to stop being the mistake in someone else's story." I stepped closer. "Then don't make me part of one. Just let this be what it is." She looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, she didn't hide the fear behind her eyes. "I can't," she said, but her voice betrayed her. I reached out, not to touch her, just close enough that a single strand of her hair brushed the back of my hand. She didn't move. The rain hit harder against the glass. Her breath met mine. Too close, too warm. "Elena." She closed her eyes. "Don't." But she didn't step back. And just as the moment tipped, her lips a breath away, her resolve slipping, the sharp knock of a fist against the door shattered the silence. We both froze. Her eyes opened, wide, terrified, caught. Then, a voice from the other side. "Mom? It's me." Everything inside her went still, and the space that had been filled with heat and hunger turned instantly cold. The next move would change everything. The knock came again, sharper. This time, "Elena? Are you home?" Mara's voice. Too close. Too real. Elena's eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. "Go," she mouthed, barely audible. I shook my head. "Where?" "Anywhere," she whispered, already pushing me toward the hallway that led to the kitchen. Her hand on my arm was steady, but I could feel the tremor beneath her skin. The rain outside masked my steps, but my heart was louder than either of us. She opened the door just as Mara's impatient hand lifted to knock again. "Hey, Mom." "Mara." Elena's tone was composed, too composed. You're early. I figured we could have dinner. You didn't answer my text. I was painting. I could see them from the narrow gap between the kitchen and the hallway mirror. Elena's smile looked practiced, but her hand lingered on the doorknob, knuckles pale. Mara stepped inside, brushing off her coat. It smells like rain and, she paused, glancing toward the second cup of tea still warm on the table. Someone else's cologne. My stomach tightened. Elena followed her daughter's gaze, eyes flicking briefly toward the cup. She picked it up, pretending to clear the table. A friend dropped by earlier. Friend. Mara's voice tilted with suspicion. Who? Elena didn't answer right away. Her fingers brushed her bracelet, the same one that had caught against my sleeve that day in the cafe. Attell. Mara, she said softly, some things don't need to be explained. Mara frowned. You always say that when you're hiding something. Elena turned her back then, just for a second, and that's when it happened. Mara's reflection caught mine in the mirror. Just a flash, half a face, the edge of my shoulder, enough. Her voice dropped, sharp with disbelief. Is someone here? Elena froze. The silence stretched, the sound of rain filling the space between lies. No, Elena said finally, too quickly. Mara took a step toward the hall. You're lying. I moved before I thought, stepped out, because hiding felt worse than being found. Mara, I began. Her face went pale, then red. You? Elena's composure shattered like glass. It's not what you think. How could it be anything else? The words hung in the air, cutting through the quiet. Elena reached for her daughter's hand, but Mara stepped back. You're my mother, she said, voice trembling. He's practically an adult, Elena interrupted, voice breaking. And I didn't mean for this to happen. The room pulsed with silence. The rain hammered harder. Mara turned away, tears catching the light. You always said love shouldn't hurt anyone. So what's this? No one answered. She grabbed her coat and left before either of us could speak again. The door slammed. Elena pressed her hand to her mouth, shoulders shaking, not from tears, but from the shock of everything unraveling at once. I stepped closer, reaching out, stopping just before touching her. She knows, I said quietly. Her voice came out in a whisper. And now, so does the world that comes with her. Her hand finally dropped to her side, trembling, empty. What had felt secret now felt dangerous. And for the first time, I saw it clearly in her eyes. Not desire, not guilt, but fear. Fear of what she'd just lost, and what she still couldn't stop wanting. Hours passed after Mara left. The rain softened into a steady whisper, the kind that sounded almost forgiving, but neither of us spoke. Elena sat on the floor by the window, her knees drawn in, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. I stayed standing, not sure if I was supposed to leave or wait for her to tell me to. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, stripped bare. She looked at me like I was someone she didn't know. I swallowed. Maybe she just needs time. Elena shook her head. Time doesn't fix betrayal. It only teaches you how to live with it. The words hit harder than she meant them to. Because she wasn't just talking about Mara. I moved closer, slow enough not to startle her. You didn't do anything wrong. She laughed under her breath, the kind of laugh people make when they're trying not to cry. You really believe that? Yes. Her gaze flicked up, meeting mine. Then you don't understand what it costs to be looked at the way you look at me. I knelt in front of her. Then help me understand. For a moment, neither of us breathed. The air between us felt charged, like the last second before lightning hits. I used to think love made people braver, she whispered. But maybe it just exposes everything we've tried to hide. Her hand was trembling when it reached up, barely, brushing my jaw like she didn't mean to. My pulse stuttered. Her fingertips lingered, soft, searching. I can't undo what's already happened, she said. Then stop pretending you want to. Her breath caught. Then she leaned forward, not enough to close the distance, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of her words against my skin. You think this is desire, she murmured, but it's ruin dressed in softer light. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather be ruined with you than untouched without you. That broke something in her. She exhaled, a sound between surrender and relief, and then the space between us disappeared. Her forehead rested against mine, both of us trembling, caught in the kind of closeness that feels like confession. No kiss, just the weight of everything unspoken pressed between two breaths. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were wet but steady. If we go any further, she said, there's no pretending we didn't mean it. I stopped pretending a long time ago. She searched my face, for doubt, for reason, for a way out, but found none. Then, quietly, she smiled. Not the careful one she wore for the world. This one was small, raw, and full of something that hurt to look at. Then promise me, she whispered. Whatever happens after this, you'll remember that I tried not to. I know, I said. And that's why I can't walk away. She closed her eyes, one tear slipping down, catching the light like glass. Then she reached for my hand, fingers interlocking, certain, trembling. The clock ticked once, loud and final. The rain began again. And somewhere between guilt and gravity, she leaned in, just enough to let me feel the shape of her breath, before whispering, almost to herself, "This is the moment we'll never be able to take back." The story didn't end there, but something inside both of us did. Morning came soft and gray. The storm had passed, leaving the streets washed clean and glistening. From her window, the city looked almost new, like the world had been given a chance to start over. Elena stood by the glass, barefoot, her sweater hanging loose at one shoulder. The light caught her skin in pale gold. I watched her from the couch, still half in shadow, the scent of coffee drifting between us. Neither of us spoke right away. The quiet wasn't awkward anymore. It was something gentler, the kind of silence that comes after two people have finally stopped pretending. She turned, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You should have gone home," she said. I didn't want to. Her smile was tired but real. "You never do what you should." I stood and crossed to her, slow, hesitant. "And you?" "I've spent most of my life doing what's right," she said softly. Maybe that's why it never felt real. Her hand found the window frame, fingers tracing the condensation. I reached out and covered them with mine. She didn't pull away this time. Our hands fit awkwardly, hers smaller, colder, but it felt like something that made sense. "You know," she murmured, "it would have been easier if we hadn't met again after that first day." "I know." And yet, I leaned closer, waiting, but she didn't finish. Instead, she turned toward me, not with the fierce tension of before, but with quiet certainty. Her forehead brushed against mine, a soft, steady contact. "I don't want to fight this anymore," she whispered. The sound of it, not desperate, just honest, settled deep in my chest. Neither of us tried to name what it was. Love, maybe. Need, definitely. Something in between, fragile and real. She pulled back just enough to look at me. "You'll have to leave eventually," she said. Eventually, I agreed. But not yet. Not yet. The smallest smile crossed her lips. She leaned in, pressing a kiss to my forehead, warm, deliberate, unhurried. It wasn't about wanting anymore. It was about seeing. About being seen. Outside, the clouds were beginning to break. The air smelled like rain and beginnings. Elena exhaled slowly. "Mara will call. She always does. I'll tell her the truth. Maybe not all of it, but enough." I nodded. "She'll understand one day." Her eyes softened. "You're still young enough to believe that." I laughed quietly. "Maybe, but I also believe this, right now, is worth it." She took my hand again, their fingers threading naturally this time. "Then stay for coffee." "Always," I said. We stood like that for a long while. No words, no promises, just the warmth of shared stillness and the rhythm of the city waking below. Whatever came next, it would be theirs to face. Together, maybe. Apart, maybe not. But for that one morning, everything felt possible. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Something tender and redemptive, or something with a darker, more dangerous pull?